Los Angeles, the city of glitz, grit, and 1,000 secrets locked behind steel doors and smoky barroom whispers. But on the edge of its neon heartbeat, buried in the forgotten warehouse veins of the industrial district, something was about to shatter the silence forever. It was a night like any other, or so it seemed. Friday, September 13, 1997. The kind of date that superstition clings to. Inside a nondescript building wrapped in barbed wire and shadow, 5 night shift workers moved stacks of green like they were handling fire. $20 million in cold, hard cash, being prepped for the morning run to ATMs across the city. Just another shift at the fortress-like cash transport facility until the devil knocked. Midnight had just given way to tomorrow. In the break room, one of the security guards, a man worn thin by routine, sipped lukewarm coffee and stared at a muted television. Then came the sound that changed everything. Hands up. Get down now. 5 silhouettes burst in, masked and moving like ghosts with purpose, no hesitation, no wasted motion. They weren't there to make noise. They were there to disappear with millions. One of them jerked the startled guard to his feet. Move, he barked, dragging him toward the nerve center, the surveillance room. Rows of monitors lit up their faces in soft static glow, catching glimpses of the chaos they were orchestrating. The second guard, younger, unarmed, and minutes from the end of his shift, walked in blind. He froze. There was no hero act. Just a silent surrender. He knew the game was already over. Meanwhile, the crew divided. 4 of them sprinted toward the vault, the 5th stayed behind, a sentinel making sure no alarms screamed into the night. Guns drawn, commands barked, they moved through the facility like they'd rehearsed it 100 times. Every step precise. Every second accounted for. On the ground. Now, another voice thundered. The employees hit the floor. They didn't need a second warning. The air was thick with fear and sweat and something else. Control. The robbers owned the room now. The leader, a man who spoke with clarity and command, issued curt orders. Not that one, this one. Number 5, stick to the plan. No names. Just numbers. Code names. They weren't just hiding identities, they were hiding intention. This wasn't rage. This was choreography. From a radio came a metallic voice. Number 6, bring the truck around. We're ready. The crew had anticipated every variable. Every blind spot. Every heartbeat. They worked like a machine, unloading millions from the vault with military precision, heading for the loading dock. Not here. Move it over. In the office, another thief ripped the hard drive from the surveillance system, the last piece of digital truth. Give me a hand with this. Then came the noise, loud, jarring bangs. The kind that rattled the soul and blurred the line between robbery and something worse. The hostages braced for death. But it didn't come. Instead, the robbers snatched one item, the shift manager's car keys. And then, nothing. The silence was deafening. No footsteps. No doors. No voices. Just absence. Then a breath. You okay, Jackson? One of the guards whispered. Hold on, I'll help you. The spell was broken. They scrambled to a phone. Dialed 911. Sirens answered minutes later. Red and blue flashed across concrete and corrugated metal as the LAPD stormed the scene. Detective Daniel Brooks was one of the first to arrive. We're on our way, he had told his team, not knowing they were about to step into the aftermath of one of the boldest heists in American history. This wasn't your average stick-up, Brooks muttered as he surveyed the wreckage. This was a statement. Every witness said the same thing, the robbers were trained. Calm. Clinical. They didn't flinch. They didn't wander. They went straight for the heart of the cash and left the rest untouched. Someone, somewhere, knew this place inside and out. But the kicker? No one saw how they vanished. Except for one sound, a diesel engine rumbling into the distance. They weren't 5. They were 6. And one of the employees, still trembling, told Brooks something that made the detective stop cold. I think I recognized one of their voices. In every crime, there's a thread, a moment, a sound, a mistake, and in that warehouse, it was a voice. One of the employees, a woman with steady nerves and years under her belt, hadn't seen a face. But what she heard, that was different. I didn't see anything, she told detectives, eyes distant, voice shaking. But one of them, he said something, and it sounded familiar. Like someone I used to work with. The words hit the room like a crack of thunder. Detective Mark Harris leaned in. Are you sure? She hesitated. I think so. It's hard to be certain with the masks and everything, but the way he spoke, the tone. It stuck with me. Detectives Brooks and Harris exchanged a knowing glance. Come down to the station in the morning, Brooks said gently. We'll go through old staff files. See if anyone stands out. This wasn't just a hunch anymore. It was the beginning of something big. With the sheer scale of the theft, nearly 19 million stolen, federal lines lit up fast. The case belonged to more than just the LAPD now. Enter Special Agent Jonathan Mercer. A man who'd spent the better part of 2 decades chasing ghosts in suits and shadows, the kind of lawman who could read a crime scene like scripture. When he arrived the next day, he walked the site with quiet intensity, eyes scanning every detail. They knew the building, Mercer said. Not just the layout, the infrastructure. They even knew where the backup surveillance hard drive was stored. That drive wasn't common knowledge. Only a handful of employees had access to its location. Mercer didn't need a flowchart to see the pattern. Inside access. No question. The bureau went public. A bulletin went out, height ranges, clothing, weapon types. Witnesses described 5 of the robbers as black males. One had a lighter complexion, possibly Hispanic. The reward? A crisp $250,000 for information leading to arrests. But leads don't chase themselves. Detectives dove into the company's employee records, looking for anyone with motive, familiarity, or just bad timing. That's when Brooks found it. He was flipping through files, eyes tired but focused, when his finger stopped. Wait a second, he muttered, brow furrowing. This guy, he was fired the day before the robbery. Harris slid over. That's not just bad luck. That's a red flag. What's his name? Aaron Price. 18 months on the job. No criminal record, but plenty of disciplinary notes. Repeated warnings for breaking protocol. Always ending up in places he didn't belong. He never returned his keys, Brooks noted. That's a problem. It was more than a problem, it was a roadmap. Special Agent Mercer looked over the file, tapping it with quiet certainty. If he's our guy, he had help. No one pulls off a job like this alone. That same day, they knocked on the door of a modest apartment on the west side. Aaron Price answered almost too fast, like he'd been expecting them. Aaron Price? Brooks asked, voice neutral. Yeah, Aaron said coolly. What's this about? Brooks tilted his head. You heard about the robbery? Aaron nodded. Yeah. It's all over the news. Crazy stuff. No nerves. No flicker of fear. Where were you that night? Harris asked. Party in Long Beach, Aaron said, already spinning the thread. My girlfriend, some friends. We were there all night. You can ask her. The alibi came pre-packaged. Too smooth. Too rehearsed. You mind if we talk to her? Not at all. Back at headquarters, the team ran the girlfriend's name. Harris's voice dropped to a low murmur as he read the results. You're gonna want to hear this. Mercer looked up. She used to work at the same company. Surveillance Division. Brooks let out a low whistle. So let me get this straight. Aaron gets suspended a day before the heist. His girlfriend handled the cameras. And he never gave his keys back. Yeah, Mercer said flatly. That's not coincidence. That's planning. She backed up his story. Said they were together all night. And a few other party guests confirmed seeing Aaron. But it still didn't sit right. He's too comfortable, Brooks said afterward. Like he rehearsed this in the mirror. Mercer nodded. If he's involved, he built that alibi a month in advance. Meanwhile, back in D.C., the smallest clue of the night, a piece of broken plastic from the loading dock, was undergoing analysis at the FBI lab. When the call came, Mercer took it himself. We've got a match, the tech said. Taillight cover from a rented white box truck. A nondescript vehicle. The kind people forget. The kind that blends in until it doesn't. Start checking rental companies, Mercer ordered. One of them's going to lead us home. They didn't know it yet, but the pieces were moving. And the trail, once cold, was heating up fast. The first lead came from a narrow strip of concrete in Inglewood, a small, forgettable truck rental company with flickering fluorescent lights and a manager who looked like he hadn't slept since the 80s. It was one of dozens the FBI had canvassed. But this one? This one had a wrinkle. Check this out, the agent said, holding up a rental agreement. Guy named Ethan Hill took out a box truck the day before the robbery. Detective Harris scanned the form. The name rang a distant bell. Ethan Hill, why do I know that? Brooks flipped through his notepad, finger trailing across old entries. Here it is. Hill used to work with Aaron Price. Different company, same industry, private security. It wasn't a smoking gun. But it was warm. And warmth in a case this cold was gold. They tracked the rental truck down, a dusty white box truck returned less than 24 hours after the heist. Sitting quietly in a fenced lot, waiting to be forgotten. FBI techs descended on it like vultures. They scanned every inch, every scratch. When they matched the damage to the broken taillight cover from the crime scene, Mercer knew they'd struck pay dirt. This was it, he said. This was the getaway vehicle. The catch? The ID used for the rental was a fake. But a fake ID only covers the surface. Below that, people leave fingerprints not on glass, but in digital echoes. Bank accounts. Work records. Phone histories. It didn't take long to pull a thread. Ethan Hill's trail tied him to 3 other men. All former security personnel. All ex-colleagues of Aaron Price. And now they were building something dangerous, a network. One of those names was Jordan Carter. A smooth talker. Low profile. No violent record. But something didn't fit. Agent Philip Monroe, a forensic accountant who could smell dirty money the way a bloodhound scents fear, began sifting through financial data like a prospector looking for glints of gold. People don't sit on nearly $19 million in cash, Monroe told Mercer. They move it. Quietly. And Carter had moved it. $100,000, deposited in fresh, sequential bills. Bank straps dated just 2 days before the heist. You don't get those at a casino, Monroe said. You get them from a vault. Where does he fit in? Mercer asked. Worked security, Monroe replied. Same company as Price and Hill. That made 3. Now the net was tightening. But instead of kicking in a door, the Bureau took a different route. They knocked. A calm visit. No threats. Just questions. Carter was cool, polite, maybe too polite. Claimed ignorance. Claimed innocence. Until Monroe dropped the paperwork. $100,000 in new bills, he said softly. Want to tell us where it came from? Carter blinked. Swallowed. Just came into some money, he muttered. Mercer leaned in. We can trace every dollar. These bills have serial numbers. We know they came from that vault. Silence stretched between them like a drawbridge over shark-infested water. We already know about Ethan Hill, Mercer continued. And Aaron Price. At Hill's name, Carter flinched. Barely. But enough. Mercer caught it. Tell us what you know, Jordan. This is your shot. Carter exhaled. Shoulders slumped. All right, he said. But I want something in return. Mercer didn't blink. Start talking. We'll see. And just like that, a house of cards began to collapse. According to Carter, the plan hadn't come together in a week or a month. This thing had been in the works for a year. Aaron Price was the architect. He studied the building like a man memorizing a blueprint to salvation. Security schedules. Camera angles. Shift changes. He knew it all. We weren't just some guys with guns, Carter said. We knew. Every bolt, every blind spot, every camera. And the keys? Monroe asked. Aaron never gave M back, Carter smirked. Still had M the night we walked in. But the door looked forced. That was part of it. We scratched up the locks so it'd look like a break-in. Make everyone think we had to muscle our way in. They had names. They had a plan. And now they had confirmation that the crew had used inside knowledge and surgical precision. Aaron Price. Ethan Hill. Jordan Carter. 3 men accounted for. Carter wasn't done. There was a fourth guy, he admitted. But I'm not giving you his name. Why? Mercer asked. Carter's face darkened. The confidence drained from his voice like water from a cracked glass. Because he's dangerous, he whispered. Real dangerous. Brooks leaned in. Dangerous how? Carter looked them dead in the eye. You think Aaron was the brains? You think Ethan was the wheels? This guy? He's the one you don't cross. He's not in it for the money. He's in it to hurt people. Mercer's jaw clenched. If even the thieves were afraid of him, then this wasn't just another player. This was the monster in the dark. Every crew has its edge, the guy you keep on a short leash, the one you call when fear isn't enough. And for Aaron Price's gang, that man had no name. Not one they dared to speak, anyway. He's the real problem, Carter said. Voice low. Eyes darting. Like just saying too much might bring the devil to the door. Special Agent Jonathan Mercer wasn't new to fear. He'd seen it etched on the faces of killers, liars, and desperate men. But Carter? Carter was afraid of a ghost. So the Bureau did what it does best. They started digging. Phone logs. Financials. Arrest reports. Anyone who moved in Carter's orbit was scrutinized under a microscope. That's when a name surfaced. Vincent Ramirez. Not just another ex-security guy. This one came with a rap sheet long enough to stretch across state lines: armed robbery, aggravated assault, illegal firearms. A history soaked in red ink. He'd never taken the fall for a major job, but his fingerprints were all over the criminal underworld like graffiti on a train yard wall. They brought Carter back in. Tossed a mugshot on the table. Ramirez's eyes stared out from the paper like he already knew he'd be found. Is this him? Mercer asked. Carter didn't answer. Didn't need to. The twitch in his jaw did it for him. Brooks leaned in. You're scared of him. Carter swallowed hard. He's not like the rest of us. We just wanted the money. Vince? He'd kill you just to send a message. And that changed everything. This wasn't about finishing a robbery case anymore. This was about containing a storm before it broke loose. Turns out, Ramirez hadn't exactly vanished. He was living it up in Las Vegas, casinos, high-end suites, flashy clothes, and fat stacks of $100 bills. The kind of lifestyle that raises eyebrows when you don't have a job. It fits, Brooks said. They steal nearly $19 million, and this guy starts burning through it like he hit the lottery. Surveillance footage from the Mirage, the Bellagio, the Aria, his face turned up in all of them. Always cash. Always confident. Never careless. Until one night. A call came in from casino security. "He's here," the whisper said. "Just cashed out 20 grand in chips." Mercer didn't send in a SWAT team. He set a trap. A casino staffer approached Ramirez near the bar. "Sir, there's an issue with your vehicle in the parking lot. You might want to check it out." Ramirez followed. Cool. Unbothered. But the moment he stepped through that side exit, he found himself staring down a wall of federal agents. Weapons drawn. Hands steady. "Vincent Ramirez, you're under arrest." For a heartbeat, he tensed, hand hovering near his waistband like he was deciding how fast he wanted to die. But he wasn't suicidal. Not today. He raised his hands. It was over. Back in Los Angeles, Ramirez sat in an interrogation room and said nothing. Stone. Cold. Silent. But they didn't need his words. Carter had already laid out enough for indictments. The charges rolled in like thunder. Armed robbery. Conspiracy. Money laundering. They had 4 of the 5 locked in. 1. Aaron Price, the architect. 2. Ethan Hill, the wheelman. 3. Jordan Carter, the inside man. 4. Vincent Ramirez, the enforcer. But there was one problem left behind in the dust and silence of that empty vault. Where was the money? Out of $18.9 million stolen, only about $5 million had been recovered. And as Ramirez was being loaded into a federal van, an agent asked the question everyone wanted answered. "Where's the rest of it?" Ramirez smirked, eyes gleaming. "You think we're stupid," he said. "You'll never find it." And maybe he was right. With Ramirez behind bars, the FBI could breathe, barely. They had the crew, the timeline, even the confession. But the money? That was a ghost still floating out there, heavy with silence and secrets. Of the $18.9 million stolen that night, only 5 had resurfaced. The rest? Gone. Dissolved into the cracks of the city like water into pavement. The Bureau knew it wasn't burned, and it wasn't buried under a mattress. That kind of money doesn't vanish, it waits. The IRS's Financial Crimes Division joined the chase, dragging a net through every bank account, wire transfer, and real estate purchase in Southern California. "People don't sit on that kind of cash forever," said Agent Philip Monroe, the same bloodhound accountant who'd sniffed out Jordan Carter's deposit. "They spend it. Or try to hide it. Either way, we'll find it." And he was right. Luxury cars paid in full with cash, no financing, no paperwork. Properties purchased under shell names, linked to offshore trusts with addresses in countries that didn't ask questions. One house had a hidden room, behind a mirror, filled with bundles of $100 bills wrapped in vault straps dated just days before the heist. But it was all scattered puzzle pieces without the box top. The biggest portion was still missing. So the FBI kept watching. Every call made. Every visitor logged. Every financial transaction flagged. Because they knew the truth, the crew had stashed the rest somewhere. They were just waiting for the heat to cool down before digging it up. Then, 2 years into his sentence, Vincent Ramirez made a mistake. He was on a monitored call from prison, talking to an old associate. He thought he was clever, casual, coded, smooth. But the agents had learned how to listen between the lines. "We need to pick up the tools," Ramirez said. "The ones we left in the warehouse." Tools? The Bureau didn't buy it. They traced the call. Identified the man on the other end. A known associate with a background in laundering money and a record full of shadows. That was enough. 1 week later, agents raided a storage unit in East LA. The kind of place you rent under a fake name, pay in cash, and hope never gets noticed. What they found inside would make a banker's pulse spike. Stacks of cash, sealed in plastic, hidden in containers marked as electrical equipment. $9 million. Mercer stood over it, arms crossed, lips thin. "We knew it was still out there. The bust gave prosecutors enough to file new charges against Ramirez: money laundering, conspiracy to conceal stolen funds. 10 more years added to his already long stay. Freedom was no longer in his future. But even with that score recovered, nearly $5 million was still gone. The FBI didn't stop. They couldn't. They kept tabs on every member of the crew, even after sentencing. Watched the ones who flipped. Watched the ones who didn't. Because the last stretch of missing cash still had a heartbeat. Somewhere. And they knew that greed had no patience. Sooner or later, someone would try to touch it. Years passed. The dust had settled, but the trail never went cold, not for the FBI. There was still $5 million out there. Unclaimed. Unspent. Unseen. It haunted the case files like a phantom. The Bureau watched, waited, and listened not just to the crew, but to their friends, family, girlfriends, even distant cousins. Because missing money doesn't sleep. It whispers. And someone always answers. Some believed it was long gone, laundered overseas, wrapped in shell companies, fed into underground economies. Others had a different theory. There was someone else. Someone never caught. Someone who never touched the spotlight, never fired a gun, never showed their face, never left a trace. An unknown sixth man, the silent partner who vanished with his share of the score and never looked back. The FBI didn't have a name. Just shadows. A few whispers from jailhouse talk. Some scribbled notes on the edge of seized notebooks. But nothing solid. Nothing they could pin down. Yet they watched. Every 6 months, someone from the Bureau would run another search. Recheck bank records. Pull new satellite scans of old storage lots. Call in favors from foreign agents looking for large-scale cash exchanges. They knew this wasn't over. Then one day, years later, something flickered on their radar. A small property outside San Bernardino, purchased under an alias linked to a dormant trust. No mortgage. No job listed for the owner. But the land had recently been disturbed. Dug up. Covered again. Too suspicious to ignore. Agents moved in. What they found wasn't a smoking gun, but it was smoke. Remnants of cash wrapping bands. Shovels. A tarp. And boot prints that matched the style of the shoes worn by a known associate of Aaron Price, a man never arrested, never questioned, never even brought in. They followed him quietly. Let him move. Let him breathe. And eventually, he slipped. Not by spending, but by trusting the wrong person. A tip came in from an informant, someone who wanted the reward money more than they wanted silence. The associate had been bragging, just a little. Said he knew where the rest of the loot was. That one day, he'd be rich again. That was enough. The FBI moved in. Another storage unit. Another silent takedown. This time, the haul was smaller, $1.2 million in carefully stacked cash. Moldy around the edges, but still good. Still traceable. The man went down hard. No deal. No plea. Just steel bars and a sentence that closed another chapter in this sprawling case. But even after that, roughly $3.8 million remained missing. Gone. Maybe spent. Maybe hidden in a desert pit. Maybe guarded by a man who knew how to stay invisible. No one could say for sure. The Los Angeles cash heist went down as one of the most sophisticated robberies in U.S. history. A job built on planning, patience, and betrayal. Pulled off by insiders with knowledge, nerve, and a little luck. But in the end, luck ran out. It always does. The cracks began with a voice. A flinch. A broken piece of plastic. And what was supposed to be the perfect crime unraveled like cheap thread under the weight of time and pressure. Today, the case sits on a shelf in the FBI's archives, closed, but not forgotten. And the agents still say it, if anyone ever tries to access the last piece of the missing millions, they'll be waiting.